video, I'm going to demonstrate how to work the loop stitch pattern that is featured in my pattern Rising Tide, a design collaboration between myself and Barocco Yarns. I'm using the same yarn as featured in the pattern, which is Barocco Pima 100, a worsted weight cotton yarn in the color mint. I'm working on just a little mini swatch here for demonstration purposes. So let's get started. So row 1 of this stitch pattern is a right side row, and you simply just knit to the end. So I finished row 1, so I'm going to turn my work. And row 2 is a wrong side row, and it starts with a knit 1. And then it says to slip 1 with yarn in back. So keeping the yarn in the back of the work, that's where it is right here, I'm going to insert my right needle into the next stitch on the left needle purlwise. So in like this. And then I'm going to slip it onto the right needle without working it. Then it says to repeat that sequence of knit 1, slip 1 until the very last stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and do a knit 1. Then again, keeping the yarn in the back of the work, I'm going to slip the next stitch by inserting the right needle purlwise into the next stitch on the left needle, and then just slipping it over to the right needle without working it. So then I'm just going to repeat that knit 1, slip 1 sequence over and over again until one stitch before the end. Okay, so I'm doing my last slip, and so I'm at the last stitch, and then it says to just knit that last stitch. So now row 2 is complete. I'll turn my work. So row 3 is a right side row, and just like row 1, all you need to do is knit to the end. Okay, so I've reached the end of row 3. So then I will turn my work. Row 4 is a wrong side row, and it's similar to row 2, but before we start the sequence of knit 1, slip 1, we're going to knit 1 stitch. So first I'm going to knit 1, and then it says knit 1, slip 1. So then I'm going to, and then repeat that sequence. So now I'm going to knit 1 again, and then slip 1 purlwise with yarn in back, knit 1, slip 1. And so I'm going to continue that knit 1, slip 1 until the last 2 stitches. Knit 1 and slip 1. And so now I'm at the last 2 stitches, and those 2 stitches we just knit. And so we've reached the end of row 4. So that is how you work the 4 rows in this stitch pattern. One thing I now want to show you is how to read your knitting with this stitch pattern. You don't have to worry about your right side rows because those are always knit, but on the wrong side, rows 2 and 4 are just slightly different. So I want to show you how you can visually see the difference between them. So in order to do that, we're starting with a row 1 again. So I'm just going to knit to the end of this row. Okay, so I'm just finishing up my row 1. Now, before I turn the work, I just want us to take a look at our fabric here, and let me slide it like this so it's on the cable part. Now, one thing that's really helpful with this stitch pattern is to be able to identify which were your slip stitches when working on the wrong side row. So you can tell because see these elongated loops? These were the slip 1 with yarn and back. These little loops up here, these are just our knit stitches, but these elongated ones, these are our slip one. And as you can see, when we sort of open up this pattern, because it's a 4-row repeat of this stitch pattern, see how on the last time we did the slip one, it's over here, but then on the time before it, it's staggered over here. So they're always sort of staggered like that. And so when we start the next row, if you weren't sure whether or not it was supposed to be a row 2 or a row 4, the easiest thing to do is look at your work in this position and see where your loops are. So I can see, for example, that I have an elongated loop here and an elongated loop here. And because they're always staggered every other row, that means that I'm on this next row, I'm going to want to loop right here, right? So not right directly above here or directly above here. I'm going to want that loop to be right here. So I know on that next row that I want this stitch to be a slip one with yarn and back. And so because that is the 4th stitch over, then that tells me I must have, my next row must be a row 2, because row 2 would be knit 1, slip 1, knit 1, slip 1. Now, row 4, remember, starts with a knit 1, and then you do knit 1, slip 1, knit 1, slip 1. So if it had been a row, I know it's not row 4, because then that would have made this stitch a knit. And I know, looking at my loop pattern here, because I want it staggered, that there should be a loop under this stitch right here. And so I can turn my work and know that, okay, I know I'm doing a row 2. So that again starts with a knit 1, slip 1, knit 1, slip 1. And I'll just do that until I get to the last stitch. Okay, I'll turn my work and I'm gonna work row 3, again, that knit row, so then I can show you that same example, but this time on the row 4. Okay, so I just finished up my row 3. Now again, like we had done before, to read our knitting, I'm just going to slide it to the cable part. And I'm going to take a look. So again, it looks good. See how that slip stitch we had just worked on the previous wrong side row, it's staggered compared to the other ones. And so again, looking at this, I know that on this next wrong side row, I want to make sure that this stitch here is the one that's slipped, because I could see here's my elongated loop, here's my elongated loop. So I want it to be able to go in between. I don't want it to be this one because that's directly above. And I don't want it to be this one because that's directly above. I want it to be this one. So if I know I want this stitch to be a slip one, then this would be a knit 1, this would be a slip 1, this would be a knit 1, and I still have one more stitch. So that's how I know this must be a row 4, because remember, row 4 starts with a knit 1 before it begins the repeated sequence of knit 1, slip 1. So now I can turn my work and confidently know that on this wrong side row, I'm going to be working a row 4. So I'm going to start with a knit 1 and then begin my repeated sequence of knit 1, slip 1 with yarn and back. Okay, so I've reached my last slip 1 and then I just knit my last 2 stitches. So that is how you work the 4-row loop stitch pattern that's featured in my design, Rising Tide.